All right, can everyone see this? Hopefully we'll all be able to hear it later too. I've got some slides to talk about a project I've been working on this semester, and then we'll go over to the patch and actually break it down and conclude with a demonstration and then some questions. So the title of this is it's called Composing and Improvising Using Sound Content-Based Descriptive Filtering. And the name of the project, which is written in Max, it's a working title right now, but it's what I've just in the meantime called the Freesound Player. And it's a digital instrument which uses the Freesound API to retrieve a number of samples, multiple samples, using sound content-based descriptive filtering. So you can use text to search terms, or text to search samples like you would using the Freesound repository using their website. And then you can select a number of filters based on what you want the sounds to sound like once they're returned. So you can say, if you want boomy sounds that are reverberant, or sounds that have high frequencies, that are very bright sounds, then you can return those. And those get loaded. You can see just a picture of the patch here. Those get loaded into this grid of 4x4 buffers. And then you can trigger the buffers, perform with them, loop them, scrub through the audio, and then use them to generate soundscapes if you'd like. So if you're not familiar with what Freesound is, essentially it is a collaborative repository of Creative Commons licensed audio samples. It's also a nonprofit organization. They have approximately 400,000 sound samples and effects, and about 8 million registered users. We can go to the website here. You can create an account, log in. I'm already logged in, and you can search here. So I've been doing a lot of searching. You can type in, water, and then you'll get a ton of sounds. So we're getting right now about 18,000 different sounds that have something to do with water. You can click on them, listen to one. It's a water droplet. You can download it and then use it for your projects. So what is a web API? Well, an API stands for Application Programmable Interface, and it is a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. So as the name suggests, a web API is an API over the web that can be accessed using the HTTP protocol. A pretty good metaphor for this is a restaurant. So imagine you go to a restaurant and you're given a menu, and the menu has a bunch of choices, and you want to request a dish. So you want to request a steak or a salad or whatever, and you need to relay this information to the kitchen. So in this metaphor, the server is an example of the API. It takes your order and it goes and tells the kitchen what you want to eat. You don't have to know anything about ovens or stoves. It's all prepared for you, and then the waiter brings it back and delivers you your food. And web APIs they're extremely common. If you've ever booked a flight, a hotel, made a reservation, made a request to any sort of application, you've probably had some experience with web APIs. So the Freesound API, and I actually just found out about this semester, so it kind of piqued my interest in pursuing a project like this. But it is incredibly robust, in my opinion. There's a lot you can do with this. The documentation is pretty thorough. So here are some of the contents. We can just go to resources. So this is the page that I spent most of my time on, and especially search resources. Most of the documentation here and the search resources are meant for you to be able to narrow down your search when looking for sounds. But I kind of expanded upon this to try to create some sort of way to compose and improvise with an instrument using these filters. So I mostly stuck to, so the query. This is the main parameter used to search. This is like the Freesound search engine. Typing text into the search bar there will retrieve sounds. So this is an example of the query. And then the filter is pretty much the only other thing that I used. And there are several filter types. So here's a few of the most common ones. Filter name, so the ID. This is every sound you upload to Freesound has a tag. It's given a numeric tag that can be used to identify the sound. Username, the date in which it was added, description, duration. This is one that I use in my patch. It's also numerical, so duration of the sound in seconds. So you can search for a sound, let's say between 5 and 10 seconds if you want, and it will only retrieve you sounds within that range. Down here, these are some of the more descriptive ones. These are the ones that I stuck to most. I use loudness, temporal centroid, log attack time. These perhaps down here are the most interesting. This AC brightness, and it gives a brief description here. It's brightness of the analyzed audio on a scale from 0 to 100. A bright sound is one that is clear, vibrant, and or contains significant high-pitched elements. Deep is one that conveys a sense of having been made far down below the surface of its source. So pretty descriptive. And so you can use these along with a query search and a duration to retrieve up to 16 samples in the case of my patch. So this makes it pretty interesting, at least for me, as a compositional tool. They have several other different types of filters and ways you can narrow down searches. You can filter searches using geotagging data, so longitude, latitude lines. So if someone uploads a sound in Italy, you could search for an area, around there and retrieve sounds from, places where people have uploaded them, let's say in Europe, Asia, North America, etc., which is pretty interesting. And then there are some documentation for the types of responses you can get. So the page size is the number of samples it will return. Page size is right here. So in the case of my patch, I'm retrieving 16 samples, so a page size of 16. They have other types of descriptors, which use the Essentia algorithms, which are down here. But you can see we won't go through all of this, but there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot more to unpack than what we have time for. Yeah, so the analysis descriptor documentation. Analysis settings. So you can search for a variety of different things. Spectral complexity, and it will actually give you documentation of the algorithm, the Essentia algorithm that's being used. I haven't experimented with this a whole lot. What I've found for the most part is that it's very common if your search, let's say your query search is very specific. Let's say you're searching for, hammer, and your duration and filter ranges are very narrow. You won't most of the time receive a return of 16 samples. Sometimes it'll be 8, or a lot of times it'll be 0. So you won't get any sounds, which doesn't make it a great musical tool. So that's why I stuck to just a handful of filters that were pretty general, pretty broad. So using this instrument to search, so it actually needs information just built into the patch. So first you need to set these last three parameters. Duration sets the minimum and maximum range. This is in seconds, and I just capped it at 120 seconds, so 2-minute samples. There are samples that are longer than this on Freesound, much longer, but for the sake of the patch and just making it easier to work with. You need the filter type, which specifies the quality of the sound. So you click on one of these message boxes. So if you're looking for a deep sound, you would click this AC depth. And then you would specify the filter range, which is numeric between a value of 0 and 100. So if you wanted a deep sound, you would maybe search from 50 to 100 or 75 to 100. If you wanted a sound that wasn't bright, you would maybe select brightness and select from 50 to 0 or 25 to 0, meaning you don't want to return sounds with high frequencies. And then the last thing you do is you would define a query. You would type in the thing you want to search for here, and this would send this message along with all of this other information to the Freesound server, and then the samples, if there are any, to be returned will be loaded into buffers and ready for you to perform. So again, here's a couple that I implemented. Here's the descriptions. We looked at some of those. We won't spend too much time on that. So this is interesting to me as a compositional tool and an improvisational tool. And I just finished this up a week or two ago. So I'm now in the composing process, making etudes and figuring out how this is most effective musically. And so these are just some things I've either played with or considerations that I have, experiments that I want to try out. So like I was saying, it's somewhat common to not get a return of at least 16 samples. In some cases, you won't get any if your search is too narrow. So for this reason, I found that it's better to search, instead of searching for specific things, for specific sounds, to search very broadly with like descriptive terms or moods. So these are some that I found to be really useful. Calm, peaceful, spooky, bell. The number of sounds, potential sounds that could fit any one of these categories seems to be very large. So in this way, the compositional process would involve defining the overall mood and quality of the music. So Halloween was just not too long ago, so we could search for spooky with a boominess filter. And so we could, before we even begin to perform the piece, improvise, we could define the mood and quality of the music this way. And to me, this makes sense that it would give a dominant role to musical elements like timbre and texture, since they're also kind of broadly descriptive. So thinking in those terms rather than melody, harmony, or even form seems to be what this instrument could be really useful for. And in the way of form, and as we'll see, so whenever you create a search or whenever you make a request to the server, it clears all of the previous information from the previous search. It erases all of the buffers, loads the new information into the buffers. So musical form is something that's kind of tricky. You can't pick out a single sample and replace it with one from another search that you've made. You have to do it all at once, all 16 at once. So building musical form, it's really easy to build musical form based on the sound quality. If I want a boomy sound for this section or a bright sound for the next section, I can do this. And so this is one way to maybe structure musical form, thinking about sound content. This is something I haven't tried, but something that would be interesting to experiment with is improvising with live performers, instrumentalists. It could be enhanced by filtering with a common relationship. So I've searched a lot with this term harmonics or harmonic or harmony, things like this, and you could search with a tag like this. It could accompany a cellist playing, harmonics. You could search for bells playing, alongside a glockenspiel player, perhaps. But maybe sounds, searching for sounds that have a common relationship with a quality of, whatever the instrumentalist is playing or doing. And then a few other potential uses. So this instrument could also be novel for a number of different reasons. So one thing that is kind of interesting to me is that the repository can be used. So normally people upload samples for anyone to be able to use, but I could upload, let's say, 16 samples to the repository, and the repository would simply act as a storage space for my performance data. So I could store, they're called packs. If you store multiple samples, you can give them all the same tag. So you could call the entire pack with the name of the pack, retrieve all 16 samples, if it's like a bunch of drum samples, let's say, and then you could perform with them this way, and then your performance data would just be permanently stored in Freesound's database. Audience members for this next one could potentially participate in the performance. You could send out a note that says, I don't know, the Freesound Player will be performing at your whatever event coming up. If you go to the website and upload a sound or a sample, you can record a sample of yourself on your smartphone, upload it, prepend it with a tag like LSU EMDM footsteps, metal, whatever the sound is. And then during the performance, all of those samples could be requested live and then used to perform. And then something I want to implement and haven't yet is being able to being able to upload an entire folder. So uploading 16 samples of files that are on my hard drive to the patch, and then possibly being able to download them from Freesound, having a bunch of different folders, maybe each of them has 16 different samples in, and then loading those into the patch. So in this way, you can kind of pick and choose what samples you want. If you found 3 or 4 interesting ones from one search that you think would work well with another, you could download them all separately, put them in the same folder, and then re-upload that entire folder back into the patch, and then that is your performance data that way. If anyone has any questions, I believe that's all. Yeah, these are all my slides. So show everyone the patch. Is there something in the chat? Yeah, a whole lot. Oh, just one. Okay, so I can show you how this works. So essentially you select a duration. Let's say rather short. This is probably, 30. We'd search sharpness. Let's say we want a really sharp sound. And now someone give me something to search. Meows. I've actually searched dogs before. There are a lot of dogs barking. Meows is probably good too. All right, so they all loaded up. When 16 get loaded, all of the buffers get loaded. So you can see the playhead here, the looping start and end points mapped to the beginning and end of the buffers. Over here we have a list. So these are the sample names over here. And so I can set a download directory, select one, and then download it to that folder. One thing I want to implement is a way to preview the sounds over here. I just haven't yet. But either way, you can still, and let me know if you guys can't hear this. Well, I can't. It's because I have to turn this on. There we go. So that's a weird cat. maybe, here, zoom audio. What about now? So I have, I'm using this M audio trigger finger. It's just got 16 pads on it, just similar to this, and I'm using this as a controller. So whenever I press a pad, so we can just look at this top one at the top left. Whenever I press the pad, you'll see this toggle change to 1. And as long as I hold the pad, the sample will continue to loop. I can play multiple ones because I have multiple fingers. Matt, is your cat freaking out, Matt? No, you're fine. You can also, you can select an area here on the buffer itself. And as long as you hold it, it will loop between these start and end points. You can scrub. And then yeah, I've never searched for meow before, but this is fun. You can also, so I have a way to kind of, I wouldn't necessarily, I call it soundscape. Basically what it does is it only turns these first 4 buffers on, or these first 4 groove tilde objects on. And then it randomly sends in index values, which trigger what this groove object, which buffer it's supposed to play from next, what sample it's supposed to play. So that's why it gets loud. So that's why only these first 4 turn on whenever I select the soundscape. Right now we're only seeing 3. That means, okay, so we're seeing 4 now. So sometimes they double up. So sometimes both, buffer number 9 will be playing twice. So you'll only see 3 of them lit up here. You can set the approximate speed. So this is, I can open up the patch. So I basically just have a metronome. It's connected to a drunk object. So you can set the approximate speed of the metronome here. It's not exact because it's constantly changing. And then also you can set the, you can pitch shift each one. And every time a sample is selected, when you have the soundscape toggle selected, a new value will go into this floating point number box, and that will set the playback speed of the sample. So every time we hear the sample, the same sample from the same groove object, it'll be a slightly different pitch. The soundscape button works really well, in my opinion, with sounds that are, say, more nature sounds. The geotagging, I tried searching with the geotagging. It's like I said, it's very easy not to retrieve very many samples. What I found is more useful is just typing something into the search. So we could type in, there's probably some from New Orleans. We can make this broad. I'll see it went ahead and searched. So I didn't do this first. You can search bright. Maybe there's something here. So we got about 11 here, which is okay. I don't know if these are all recorded in New Orleans. People upload whatever, and so you kind of get whatever. But we can turn that on. ones that work really well, like I said, are nature sounds. So you can search for birds. And so right now we're searching for birds, and we're searching for any sound that can be searched for with birds with a duration of up to 2 minutes. And then I think I said brightness. So it is maybe a little misleading, but when you're searching the entire filter range values like this from 0 to 100, you're actually not really searching for sounds that are specifically bright. You're just searching for all sounds. So if you want bright sounds, it might make more sense to do that. So we got plenty of sounds there. So this was my vision for the sound. I mean, this to me sounds more like a soundscape. But while this is on, you can still trigger. You can still use the pad. So it could also be used in performance. And then right here, so you could set the speed here. I'm going to add a toggle that allows you to toggle on and off pitch shifting while the soundscape feature is on. And then I believe that that's it, unless there are questions. Or if there's something else you guys would like me to search. There's a ton of stuff. I mean, I think I've never received the same sample twice before, which is really interesting. I guess I could show you this real quick. Will someone give me another term to search? House. House. So we're searching with the filter name brightness right now. So let's just check this out. Now, something that I find really fascinating about this is when we leave the search term and the duration and the filter value the same, and we just change the filter name. So now we're searching boomy sounds, and we research. Most of the time, yeah, look, we just got 16 brand new samples, and all we've done is change the description for the sounds that we want to return. And so these are, to me, they sound boomier. I think they're all kick drums, so. So it's not always musical. And it's always fun, though, at least. Here's one that I searched with, let's see, I have it written down on a piece of paper. Yeah, harmonic drone. Let's try this. Seems to work really well for soundscapes, definitely, but kind of ambient, drone-based music. I've also had some luck with, let's see, brightness, duration. We can go kind of short, really bright. Trying to search for terms that are expressive or descriptive. So that one was pretty cool. Are there any questions?